there are 3 scenarios for him to get to that point. He could go 12 for 16 for 175 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He also could go for 18 for 24, 283 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, or 28 for 34, 295 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. But the bus doesn't stop there. Jackson is 45 passing yards shy of becoming the first player in NFL history to hit 4,000 passing yards and 800 rushing yards in a single season. If he records those 45 passing yards as well as a passing touchdown without throwing an interception, he would become the first player in NFL history to have a season with at least 4,000 passing yards, 40 passing touchdowns, and 4 or fewer interceptions. So there is so much on the line right now for Lamar Jackson. And what does he do against the Cleveland Browns? He balls out. And I believe he has a record of 7-4 against Cleveland. And he's going to find a way to make things happen because, one, Baltimore needs it. They're still in the division hunt with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Pittsburgh, which we'll get into momentarily, are playing the Cincinnati Bengals. So they have to find a way to win this game. And there is no better option to ride the backs of Lamar Jackson and bring all those records, all those statistics, and have a playoff berth.
Yeah, I mean, hard to go against Lamar Jackson, especially this season, and to put into perspective how special a year he's having. And he still might not win MVP, and I almost think of it as a little bit like Joker last year, where, you know, he's kind of a victim of his previous MVPs and the success he's had. Right. And even though this is probably the best season Lamar Jackson's ever had, he might not end up winning the award. And listen, like Josh Allen, very deserving if he ends up getting it. A guy that I think should get some votes if they end up winning this week. Sam Darnold, I think, is a sneaky candidate for it as well.
Joe Burrow.
I don't think he'll win it. But Joe Burrow, if the Bengals make the playoffs, he needs votes. Saquon Barkley, obviously. But that kind of segues into my next pick, which is Derrick Henry. I'm going to go Derrick Henry higher than half a touchdown. I think this is one where they want to get the big fella his burn early. You know, I know you referenced Lamar Jackson, but I could see Henry, you know, getting in the end zone early on against those Browns and then yanking on Keenan Mitchell. You come in, we got to rest the big fella for the playoff stretch. So while Lamar Jackson, I expect to have the opportunity to break a lot of those records, and obviously the Ravens are playing for something significant still. I want to make sure they get everything wrapped up and get that home field and that division title and the AFC North. You know, they got to take care of King Henry as well. So a lot of mouths to feed in that offense, but there'll be a lot of opportunities for it against a Browns team that obviously isn't going anywhere. I think they're going to be playing Dorian Thompson-Robinson again at quarterback. There's talks about they might be playing Bailey Zappi, which whatever the reason, doesn't matter who. Derrick Henry, I think he's getting in the end zone, so play that higher than half a touchdown. But if you like the theory of his, they're going to rest him in that blowout, maybe consider the under on yards, but that's a dangerous game, lower than on yards, dangerous game to play with King Henry involved against, obviously a very banged up Browns.
Yeah, and like I said, they still have something to play for. So I agree with you in that assessment where, if they get up big, absolutely, yeah. Especially if you lock up that division. But, I mean, I would do the higher on the yards, do higher on the 0.5, rushing and receiving touchdowns, because guess what? If there's any co-MVPs, it's Derrick Henry and it's Lamar Jackson, for sure. I think that's an argument that could be made on the same team. What history that would be, too, because they deserve it. And they played so hard, and their defense has been absolutely terrible this year. So
yeah, it's not the Ravens' defense of old.
No,
sure.
And you could actually make the case, too, that their offensive line had struggled. They're banged up. Yeah, and I feel like when you look at Lamar Jackson's body of work this year, he deserves it, absolutely deserve it. So I think you have to definitely be conscientious of them going up big, but don't settle for a little. And speaking of don't settle for a little, Najee Harris, right? Again, if we're talking about teams that still have something to play for, look at Najee Harris. 0.5 higher on rushing and receiving. Najee Harris is going up against one of the worst run defenses in all of football, if not total defense of all in football. I think Najee Harris will get goal line touches often. And Jaylen Warren, obviously on third down, maybe second and long. So definitely bank on Najee Harris around the goal line against Cincinnati.
Yeah, and once again, we talked about the AFC North and the defenses having issues, and Steelers have had a lot of issues lately. We've seen that too, obviously, with the Ravens we referenced and the Bengals all year. So that's certainly a good play. I'm going to go back to the incentives here, and Mike Evans, this 85 yards to eclipse 1,000 yards for the 11th consecutive season. Not only that, but if he catches 5 balls with those 85 yards, he gets a $3 million escalator in his bonus incentives that he hits. And Baker Mayfield's already come out saying he's trying to feed Mike and wants to get him paid. And on top of that, Marshawn Lattimore, who is no longer with the New Orleans Saints, obviously him and Mike Evans had a lot of battles over the year. Baker Mayfield's referenced as well, and maybe this is providing chalkboard material to the Saints, and I always do get a little bit wary of that. But Baker was just pointing out, I'm looking forward to feeding Mike with Marshawn Lattimore no longer in that secondary. So obviously, yes, Lattimore has been a huge presence on that Saints defense for a long time. This is something where Mike Evans is going to have the opportunity to eat big. The Bucs also are playing to clinch the division and a home field game in the postseason. So lots to play for on all sides here, no matter how you look at it. So I'm going to go with Mike Evans. He needs 85. I'm going on the higher than 89.5 receiving yards.
One guy that I want to talk about, because we have been so down on him, whether that was last year in his rookie year, heading into this year with Kirk Cousins, you just never knew. Well, now Drake London had 13 targets, 13 last week, and he had 7 catches. Believe me when I say Michael Penix is going to deliver the football to Drake London a whole lot, and against the Carolina Panthers. Trust me on this. 67.5 receiving yards. Go with the higher on that. Pump that higher. Here's the biggest reason why with Drake London. You're seeing it right now. He is one of the best high point ball catchers that we've seen in a long time. And I feel like his hands, yes, 7 catches, 13, targets. You could say, oh, that's not, 70% where you want to be. But a lot of those balls were a little bit thrown off, or they were thrown in double coverage. So when you look at Drake London and his capability and his makeup, coming from USC, he really has something to play for this year to prove people wrong. And I know that it definitely hurt them. It definitely hurt them losing to Washington. I mean, that game was absolutely incredible. Incredible. I mean, what do you think? That might have been one of the best games of the year.
It's a great game. Kyle Pitts, of all the guys to catch that fourth and goal, needing 13 yards, 12 yards to get that touchdown. I think the last person anyone thought that was going to be, hitting the ground with that ball was going to be Kyle Pitts. Yep. But, hey, like you said, Penix is now a huge X factor for them moving forward. I think he's got, the numbers aren't the prettiest on Penix, but you watch him play, and you can tell immediately, like, all right, this kid's got a little bit of something. And clearly, they're 1-1 with him as a starter. You wonder if they went to him sooner in the year during that losing streak, if they might be in the driver's seat like the Bucs are to wrap that division up. Instead, it's the other way around. But Penix looks good, and Drake London, he's quietly had a nice season. He's over 1,000 yards. I think he's caught 7 or 8 touchdowns. But him and Penix clearly have a good rapport. I like that play a lot. Sticking with our theme here of teams that are going to be desperate and playing with their season on the line. And you might like this pick. I'm going to go Jonnu Smith, higher than on receptions. I don't think they have the line set yet. I don't expect it would be more than 4.5. So anything up to that I would play. You can also set on underdog. You can adjust it too sometimes with the picks. So if you want to play it safe, and if there's 3.5 and you want to do that, that's cool. But I like Jonnu Smith higher on his receptions this week. Listen, Stu Punley's playing again. While last week in kind of an ugly game, obviously against the Browns, as I'm sure you can reference, but the weather could have been a little bit better. Yet they were able to make some plays, and Jonnu Smith sealed the game late with his touchdown. So, despite who's playing quarterback, they seem to like Jonnu Smith, and why not? He's a very good safety option. He's having quietly one of the best seasons in tight end for a tight end in the history of the Dolphins franchise. Which Jonnu Smith, and they're playing the Jets, and the Jets are the disaster dumpster fire. We even let Mitch Trubisky throw a touchdown against us last week. That's how bad we are. So, Jonnu Smith, Dolphins are still playing. They're going to be playing that game. I mean, I got nothing against Miami. I do, but I don't if they make the playoffs, and I don't even know if Tua would play. I don't know if you have any idea what's going on there, but you know what, whatever. Jonnu Smith. Putting my faith in him and my dollars in him.
So I got Noah Fant. I got him 3.5 on the higher with receptions. They're playing the Los Angeles Rams. They still have something to play for. Like I said, Geno Smith's trying to still, play for a contract, show that he can stay. And I think they're a team maybe a year out from being a real good, consistent team. I think defensively they're missing a lot, especially within their secondary. But Donald has done a pretty good job with them. I know obviously Pete Carroll took the front office position, so there was a bit of a transition period there. But you're kind of seeing Geno Smith, just kind of go with what he's got. And Jackson Smith Smith-Njigba has been really great this year. I think he's hit over 1,000 receiving yards. DK Metcalf, has been DK of old. So that's always good to see. But I think eventually you go out and get a guy in the draft. And I think Seattle might be a team that could, maybe sneak into the first round and get a guy, whether that's this year or next. So that way they can be the heir apparent to Geno Smith. Because I think Geno Smith is a real good bridge quarterback. I just don't think you're ever going to win, playoff game or Super Bowl, with Geno Smith. I think there's plenty of learning there for him, but he's got to find a way to be more consistent when his number's called and, get the guys that win you football games the ball, right? I think that's something that, he definitely lacks in a lot of turnovers, down the stretch. And I think he should have a more cleaner, finale to the season. So let's see what he can do this week against the Rams. So we're going to have fun again. Last week we did, previous weeks we've done the Christmas, tradition of talking about Christmas favorite movies, the songs, traditions. This year we're getting into 2025 New Year resolutions for our teams. So our teams, meaning for me, it's the Miami Dolphins, it's the Boston Celtics, it's the Boston Red Sox. For Ticket, it's the Los Angeles Lakers, it's the New York Jets, and it's the New York Yankees. So Ticket, I'll give you the floor for the LA Lakers so you can decide what they need or what they need to do heading into 2025.
Well, there's a lot that I would like done, whether how realistic it is, blowing it up and trading LeBron James and Anthony Davis. That's probably not going to happen. But assuming things, obviously those things aren't going to happen. Head coach also not going anywhere. I know that JJ Redick is catching a lot of heat. The Lakers obviously have not gone off to the start that they wanted, although they are playing a little bit better as of late. They're 18-14, I believe, as we record this. Listen, Anthony Davis, he's always going to have those concerns with injuries. They just made a trade the other day, getting a little bit of depth in the power forward position with Dorian Finney-Smith. On their only technically power forward on their roster,